Have you wondered if there is a blueprint for our life, if we're designed with a purpose and everyone has a unique purpose? I've been searching all my life to find out if there is a modality, a teacher, or a teaching that actually can answer some of those questions. And I think today we can answer some of those. Human design, it's something that I have recently discovered for myself, but it's been around since 1987. And today we have an awesome facilitator of human design that's going to answer all of these questions for us and give you a clearer perspective on your path. So Ahram, welcome to Think Clever. I hope that in this short period of time you can describe us how all the human beings were designed and how this universe works.
Yeah, we'll make it all make sense. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. It's great to connect with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making the time, and thank you for actually designing my blueprint. It blew my mind, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation to expand it to others. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, but there are others that are not. And I would love to understand more, what is human design, how it can be applicable to making better decisions in life and understanding yourself better.
Yeah, totally. So, I am a coach and human design guide. I also help people with their own spiritual awakening and awakening spiritually to what's possible with an expanded awareness and connecting to their flow state, connecting people how to, like I say, master manifestation, how to create what we want in a predictable and reliable way with a set of tools that actually works. So to answer your question, human design to me is the most powerful tool available to know yourself. And I like to describe it that way as a way to kind of just set the framework of what it's for. The idea is that if you're yourself more often, then it can align you to making better decisions. If you're making better decisions more often, then you're creating more and more opportunities for yourself. The one big concept that I'll offer to begin with is the idea that we were all coded by the universe the moment we were born. In other words, something happened metaphysically, physically, cosmologically, with the planets in the universe and all of the positions that they were in, to code us with innate characteristics that we have for life. And the idea is, like, if you knew your secret codes, wouldn't that be super powerful? Wouldn't that be good information to have?
Absolutely. And I always wondered about this, right? It's like, I feel good because our intuition guides us on our journey. And based on the human design that we did together, you mentioned that my intuition is a very powerful tool. And so I've been wondering about that for a long time, because my logic and intuition, they don't necessarily guide me to the same place. Right. The logic of overthinking and just kind of, like intuition, it's a slight feeling. It comes up on the surface and it brings up the idea, and you have about 3 seconds to act. And then after that, the logical mind happens. And it's like, oh, here's the million ways of why you shouldn't pursue this path. So there's this battle between intuition and the logical mind. And so I always wondered, well, if this intuition is constantly suggesting things that usually are not in alignment with the logical mind, then this is something that's created from within. This is something that perhaps this is how I was designed to go that route. And so, talking to you, it actually helped to clarify this and help to understand that this is actually a very, very powerful tool.
Absolutely. I think I just want to point on one thing that you touched on right there, which is, I think this is universal for everyone, which is part of the human experience is this push and pull between our mind and our body, right? Or our physical reality and our perceptions, or what I think I know and what I feel. rearrange those things however you want. We can talk about this as the, our intellect versus our emotions. But the funny thing about being a human is that sometimes people say, well, you really need to think this through. You really need to be logical. But other times they're like, well, how do you feel? What's your intuition say? What does your gut say? So how come it's okay to use both or either one in different situations? And when should you use your head versus when should you use the energy that you feel? And that's one of the great things about human design, is that finally decodes some of that so that you can make sense of confusion. You can make sense of some of these tense, indecisive moments that you have and give you something to center yourself.
Yes. How is it different from astrology? I know it's in the same family, kind of gives you a different, like more in-depth information about you. So could you explain a little bit more about that aspect?
For sure. So, the official definition of human design goes something like this. It is a synthesis of many different ancient forms of wisdom. So the astrological component is just one piece of it, and this is what I offer here. To think about the astrological piece is to simply look at the time stamp of when you were born. That's the astrological piece. The foundation of human design is the wisdom of the I Ching. All of the, and for people who unfamiliar with the I Ching, that, depending on what expert you look at, the I Ching is either between 3,000 and 5,000 years old. It is sort of the most ancient philosophy and guide of literally everything, all the way down to our DNA. It's only really been in Western consciousness for about 100 years. But from the I Ching, out of the I Ching came Taoism and came Confucianism, and became a lot of East Asian philosophy of the universe. So that's the foundation. The idea is that the I Ching basically represents the architecture of the universe. What human design is your personal tool, your personal operating instructions that are very simple of that information. So it's a different way of looking at reality if you get deep into it. But that's what spirituality is really all about, is about looking at things from a higher perspective. If you can look at your problems, your healing, your trauma, your goals from a higher perspective, whoa, all of a sudden things often get much simpler. You can see it clearly, and it leads you, that higher vantage point leads you to making better decisions. So the idea is that human design is the tool that gives you access to a higher way of looking at things. Now that might sound, well, what do I do with it? But it's actually really, really simple, because it gives you a way of separating the confusion that often comes from the mind from the intelligence of the body. And once you understand how those two work together for you in your unique energetic makeup, okay, now that's a code you can use to create new things with consistency.
Nice.
So
like doing this again and getting more information
right.
about myself.
I think here's the other thing I'll offer. The essence of the human design system is the body graph. And this came to a man in a spiritual experience in 1987, where the code of the universe more or less was revealed. But essentially it comes down to a map. And that's what immediately appealed to me about the system. It's a map of your body, and it shows you the way energy flows for you in consistent ways. And then you use that map to make better decisions. Like for you, in our session, just to give the viewers an example, your ultimate decision maker is your emotions. Now that might sound crazy, but at the same time, we know that emotions have some validity. So the first trick of human design is to know that your mind, while it is a super powerful awareness center, it's not your authority, meaning you don't ultimately make decisions with your mind. In your case, you're going to make sense of a problem mentally, because we all sort of need to do that to figure out where we're at, what we're observing. Is this, sort of play with some scenarios. But then when you're faced with the decisions, you're going to feel into your emotions to find your truth. And that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a perfect alignment of your strengths and your weaknesses. And sometimes they're mismatched. Sometimes, we think like, oh, this is my strengths, my intellect, I think, therefore I am. Mm-hmm. And so we guide. And in our session, I remember you switched it. You said, I breathe, that therefore I am. So switching more to the body, because for me, my body is my strengths, the emotions, the feelings, everything from there. That's how I make my decisions. And so sometimes it's, and it can work many ways, like maybe a person is more an introverted side. They like to spend time alone, and they think that, hey, something is wrong with me. I'm or like their parents come up to the child and they say, hey, you're not very social. Let's go play with the kids, right?
Right.
So
what's wrong with you, Art? Exactly.
And then like when you create this map and you realize, oh, you know what? Actually, based on your map, you're supposed to spend time alone. That's how you recharge, and that's how you come up with ideas. And so a lot of this, I feel like there's a cultural form that sometimes we're pressured to fit into, being the A-type personality, being aggressive and coming up with ideas and closing deals and, just being successful in the material world. But that's not always the path to success. Sometimes it's very different, and it's very unique for each of us. And so it's important to have that guidebook,
Exactly. So one of the things that, going back to the definition of what human design is, one of the simplest definitions that Ra Uru, the founder, talked about, he defines it as the science of differentiation. What that literally means is that each of us is designed to be a little bit different, right? There's a lot of similarities. There's so many similarities that we can unite around. But when it comes to being ourself in how you uniquely channel your genius to do whatever it is that you were meant to do, that's personal. It's so different. So the idea is that what if we forgive ourselves for everything we're not, we accept how we're uniquely designed to be, and we accept other people for being the way they are. Let's start there. Let's start with the idea that everyone's different. Okay, now what are the similarities?
Yeah, I love that. And something that keeps coming up to my mind is this quote that I read in some of the documents that you sent me. And it said, we're living in a world of generators that work around thinking they're manifestors. And it is so, it's like, that's it. I feel like this really describes the problem that we have. It's again, this pressure of, and we'll go in detail what it actually means, but everybody thinks that they need to be coming up with the next $1 billion idea, and they're the ones to do it, because it's like almost it's a trend to do that. But that's a very small percentage of people that are able to do that were designed to do it. That, most of the people are generators, and they are designed to take those ideas and execute on them. So I'd love for you to break down those types so people can understand what it means and maybe connect with some of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a great jumping off point for understanding some fundamental differences between people and how we operate that leads to a lot of opportunities to sort of re-understand some of our basic relationships with people close to us, right? So human design is based on, like I said, a lot of different wisdoms. that are synthesized together into this tool. At the same time, human design also gives us some lingo. It gives us some kind of esoteric lingo about what it means. And the most obvious place to start there is called type. It means that based on your energetic makeup of a body of 9 different energy centers, depending on how all the coordinates work and were fixed on the moment of your birth, it means that some people flow energy different than other people. The most common type is called a generator. So forget about what the, manifestor, generator, projector, forget about like what might be loaded into those terms from our culture or your culture. The idea is with a generator, these are 70% of people, and for the generator, the gift of being a generator is your work. The idea of being a generator is that you're going to find purpose and meaning through whatever it is that you do, not necessarily for money, but whatever it is you do with purpose and meaning. The other piece of being a generator, which you were alluding to, as opposed to being a manifester, we hear a lot about manifestation all over the place in personal development, right? I use it all the time too.
Yeah, it's like everybody has to know the tool of manifesting. Everybody should be.
Right, everyone should be manifesting all the time, right? So here's the idea. Generators manifest through response. So what that means is, the way I coach generators, and the way we talked about in our session, the way I coach generators is to instruct them to continue the cyclical processes that are already working for them. In other words, continue doing what you're doing that's working, stop doing the other stuff that's not working. And through the cyclical process of repeating things and doing what you do, you're going to create opportunities. You're going to stumble upon and discover opportunities. The opportunity could be a new person. The opportunity could be, do I want to go here or there? But in other words, it's the kind of philosophy that if I'm being really good at being myself, things are going to happen, and then I'm going to respond to them or not. So for generators, the advice is like, hey, just be really good at being yourself and wait. Wait for new opportunities to pop up and then respond or not. So that's most people, and I hope that's a really big relief for people who have been living their lives to this point under the pressure of having to go out there and make it happen.
Exactly, and I know that there's the word wait for an opportunity, right? It's a little bit loaded because it doesn't mean that you just kick back and do nothing.
Yeah, you just like sit there on the couch. I'm just,
I'm a generator. I'm just gonna wait. It's more like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like I feel like the universe works in a 50-50 deal. 50% of it is it's your responsibility to find something that excites you in life. To understand yourself, to understand, okay, these are the things that I love doing, these are the things that I don't. And so focus more on the things that you love doing. Then you get more into the flow state, which we'll go a little bit more into detail. This is where things are really starting to happen because you spend most of your time in a place of gratitude, in a place of excitement, and you're resourceful. And so in that state, things come to you, opportunities come to you, you meet people, and all of a sudden, all you have to do is just say yes and get involved more. And so that's kind of the description of wait for an opportunity. Do your 50%.
Do your
so
thing,
then the universe will do its 50% and say, okay, you're doing a great job doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Here's a new opportunity that will guide you to the next place. And I feel like, to me, that's the perfect structure, the perfect map of how it's supposed to be flowing. And so that's why it's important to understand, if you're a generator, then how to actually go about in life and making decisions and grasping onto opportunities.
Absolutely. I love that. The other thing I tell people quite often is kind of like, okay, do a quick review on your life. Think about like the best 2, 3, 4, or 5 things that ever happened to you. were those ideas that popped into your head and you just did and everything was perfect? Or were they based on like happenstance? I met this person. I found myself in this situation and my whole life pivoted on this one happenstance, right? There were almost everyone I talked to says that, yeah, something strange happened and it sent me in this direction. Yeah. And isn't that a relief, right?
Exactly. And so, let's expand a little bit more about the flow state, because if 70% of people who are listening to this are generators, that this is definitely like a very important subject here where, how can we be more productive, right? Because to me, what does a flow state mean? Everybody talks about flow state. Biohackers are talking about this, meditators, everybody wants to be in that resourceful state where things are just happening. You're in this, like, it's impossible to explain it. I usually say it's magic, like, oh, I'm in this magical field where people are calling me just because I spoke to them, and now we're doing things together, we're doing projects together. So it's a wonderful state to be in, and it's very easy to fall out of it as well. So how can we get back in it more? How can we use human design, when we understand ourselves more, to be more in alignment with what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, so there's so many ways I can jump in and offer some help with that. The first, I think I'll say this to me, and what I coach about the flow state and spirituality and creativity is that they're all the same thing. The idea is, if you're in the flow state, you have access to the limitless creativity of your higher self. Now, this is that state of mind that you might cultivate through exercise. You might cultivate through meditation. You might cultivate through any sort of ritual that puts you in the zone, whatever that is for you. But the idea about the zone or the flow state is that it's actually not a conscious state. In other words, your mind isn't actively over aware of everything in a problem-solving mode. It's an incredibly open state, incredibly open way of being that allows for the aha, the unexplainable, amazing insight to just happen. So we kind of accept that that's just not possible very often. It's not, there's things we can do to kind of cultivate it, but we can't really be in the flow state all the time. But I would counter that, the most spiritually enlightened people that I know, some of the most powerful people that I know, they appear to be in flow all the time. And they also appear to be happier than everyone else.
Absolutely.
So to your question about how do you do that with human design? Well, yes, making decisions is a part of it. The other part of it, to me, and this is one area that I focus on specifically, is this idea of the not self. Now, this is more jargon, the not self. Think about it like this. There's the Stas, who's a genius, and then there's that other guy. And that other guy is insecure and worried and trying to figure everything out. He's not being fully present. He's making mistakes because he's just not fully in the zone. So one of the easiest things you can do with your human design chart, there's several different sites you can go in and log in your information. I do it for people all the time. And the idea is there are some not self questions that you can ask yourself. So there's 9 different chakras in your body graph. And depending on, again, how, without getting into all the specifics, but depending on how you're wired, it's saying that most people, or it says that most people have consistent insecurities or not self questions about themselves that pop up more often than not. So if you knew yours, let's say you're having a terrible day, right? Okay, this is a tool you can go to and just sort of check down, ask yourself these questions, try to identify where the insecurity is coming from so that you can, in a healthy way, dissociate from it and say, hey, that's the other guy. That's not me. The me is over here. And when I'm me, I'm really amazing. I'm really smart. I can be in the zone when I'm me and not that not self. So it's actually a really great self-diagnostic that you can do for yourself, you can do for your partner. It's just really great information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think self-discovery, I mean, just paying attention to yourself, to your feelings, because for me, I spend a lot of time just on autopilot. You know, every day you wake up, there's no intention set, there's nothing in place. You just kind of pick up the phone, you look at what you need, you know, what problems need to be solved, and you go about the day. You know, that's the other stuff, you know, that's that mode.
Yeah.
But if you're really trying to live with intention every single day and have as much clarity about the path that you're taking, about the people that you're saying yes to and the people you should be saying no to, it's the process of self-discovery, self-understanding of figuring out, okay, this is my map, this is what I should be doing, this is what I should not be doing, and when I'm out of alignment, that these are the things I can do to get back in it. And then I'm back in the flow, then things are going great, and I'm moving forward, making steps forward instead of making side steps or stepping back. Then you're going the way you're supposed to be. And that to me, that's harmony.
Totally. Just to give an example, I'll talk about myself. You know, I have two not self questions. One of my not self questions that comes up most often for me is, am I in a hurry to get things done to be free of the pressure? And I notice when I get sped up, going too fast, got too many lights lit up and trying to balance too many variables simultaneously, you know, I might get into a mode where I'll make a big to-do list, or sometimes I'll actually even procrastinate. I'll kind of avoid this pressure. But the advice is so simple. It's, hey, Ram, slow down. You can only do one thing at a time. Oh yeah, that's right. I can only do one thing at a time. Why don't I do that? And it's just like, how come I can't overcome that? It's a practice and a process of realizing that that's one of the ways I get caught not being me. It's just getting sped up. So if I can, you know, I can't tell you how often I use this. Think, oh yeah, I'm just sped up right now. Let me slow down and focus. Okay, now I'm me again.
How can this be used? Because I can already see it being used in all areas of life. But let's say if we apply it to relationships, if we apply it to you know, parents and kids, I can already envision understanding your child early on. Yes. And raising the child in such way with having a map that can have a tremendous positive impact on avoiding so many different wrong calls in childhood.
Right, because every child is so different, you know, and this was one of Ra's biggest sort of bullseyes about what's possible with human potential. Well, what would be possible with human potential if you raised your children differently from birth, knowing you can kind of have a secret code of how they see their world. And if you can understand that and parent them differently or appropriately to how they see their world, more self-esteem, right? More happiness, more flexibility. It's just honoring how people are different. So whether it's your partner, your spouse, couples, whether it's a team environment that relies heavily on interdependent teamwork, in all of those cases, there's a number of things that can happen. First, radical acceptance of you, of who you are, honoring everything you are, letting go of what you're not. And then at the same time, really truly seeing your associates or your partners for who they are and honoring that, oh wait, you know what? They're actually not like me. We're actually a lot different. So if I honor and if I can kind of potentiate and remind them of the things that they're great at or how they make decisions, you know, this goes back to the other types, projector, manifestor, and reflector. If I can understand just some of those basic differences, wow, just the weight that's lifted and the opportunity that's created by understanding that, hey, maybe I should go into communicating to this person or that person a little bit differently. And look what happens.
I love it. How did you come to human design? How did it start for you, and what kind of impact did it have on your life and your interactions with people?
Yeah, I found it at a very serendipitous, pivotal moment for me that happened a number of years ago. I basically, I was on a little 5-day retreat. I drove out to Arizona. I stayed at Airbnb, and the woman I was staying with, who it was the host and I befriended eventually, she's like, well, have you had your human design done? And I was like, what's that? So she went to the computer, she entered my information, she gave me a little piece of paper, and I looked at it. And at that point in my life, I was, I've been an industrial designer for over 15 years. So I have a kind of very design kind of mind. When I saw the body graph and the precision of it, the word that came to me was precision. I didn't even know what I was looking at, but I was like, well, if that's me, then this is really precise. Tell me how this works. So she explained a little bit to me, but then I basically began to do my own research, and it was an unbelievably awakening experience, because what I was reading and listening to, I found to be so true about me. It led me to the next question, which is like, where did this come from? What is this? And then it just unfolded from there. And I discovered, again, quite by accident, that I have a real gift for understanding this and explaining it to other people. And then things just snowballed from there.
I think that's the beauty of it, because I've been speaking to some people, and they're saying, yeah, well, you could probably go to like YouTube, or you can create it online. And it's not just about creating the map, it's about reading the map.
Right.
And that's your gift. You're able to explain it in such a simple way that it's, the nature of human being is, we want to know, okay, why is this important for me? Like, what good does it do to me, right? And that's the point. You take all this complex stuff, and once people see the map, they will realize it's an extremely intricate process.
Yeah.
But you take this complex stuff and you're able to decode it. You're able to package it in a way that it's very understandable to a person, where I walked out of the session and I know, okay, these are the things I should be doing. These are the things I should probably switch my focus from. And so now all of a sudden I have a map, I have an agenda of where I'm going. And that's the beauty of you as a facilitator of this, and also as a coach, because as the process goes on, you actually coach people through different stages of life, right?
Absolutely. I'll say this, most people that I work with come to this material at some inflection point, at some things happening personally, professionally, internally, spiritually, all over the map. And they have a sense that, and there's, quite often we get stuck. And the number one thing you can do when you're stuck is, instead of internalizing it and judging it and figuring out what's wrong, is you can ask for help. So asking for help is that amazing, beautiful first step of, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's more to life. Maybe there's more to what I'm experiencing here than meets the eye, which is always, how discovery works. If you're into anything, right? If you're into music, or you're into, being really good at any particular talent or skill, there's a learning curve to that skill. You just don't start one day and you're a genius. And if you're willing to sort of start this process, the discoveries that are available to you on the other side are really amazing. What I was going to say is that most people come to this information somewhere around midlife, somewhere between late 20s, early 40s. I work with people of all ages, but that's most of it. Let's say that's 90% of people I work with, because what happens is, and this is that sort of, ancient hero's journey story, is we get to a certain point with what we've lived and discovered, and then everything changes. Everything changes. And we're offered this choice to continue trying to live life the way we did when we were in our early years, or to adopt a new framework of how to go about living life. And that's where the happiness is. So this is a tool that can help you make that difficult, but really necessary shift from a younger adult to a mature adult.
Wow, beautiful. And it's an honor to have you in our corner, helping us do that, go through that transition. Ahram, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? I'm sure you offer a variety of different programs or ways for people to work with you. Could you please share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So simplest thing is to go to my website. It's just simply my name, ahramarya.org. I'm on Instagram, Ahram Arya, AHRAMARYA. And also I have a human design specific Instagram page called Human Design Tribe. So within all of those things, yes, there's different kinds of multifaceted human design experiences, how this flows into coaching, how this flows into creating what you want, and a few other things as well.
That's awesome. I found great value in it, because that's the stuff that I've been looking for a long time. A lot of teachings are they're vague, and they explain different ways to look at yourself, and it's kind of like a process of self-discovery without the map, and it's always great to have a map.
Why
that's would so you funny walk without a map if there is a map available?
It's so funny because, we all learn differently. And I kind of have the same feeling, because I like maps. And as a former designer, I really like nerding out on, okay, what if you put this here and this here? And, that sort of visual process. But people learn in such different ways that a lot of people, maps don't appeal to them. They need to listen, or they need to feel into it, or they need to have an experience. So human design, while it is quite technical, what I like to really focus on is, okay, what piece of human design relates to the issues or changes or trends or transitions in your life right now? What piece of your human design can help you right now with what's happening with you? That's kind of my entry point. That's where I like to focus this. And then if, somebody likes to really get into the system and how it works, yeah, of course, that's available too.
I love it. Ahram, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for explaining us such a complex, which for the outsider, it seems a very complex design. And I really hope to connect with you again. This is fascinating, and there's so many ways to apply it in different aspects of life. Thank you so much for your dedication to this, because it's you being a guide to help people understand themselves better. This is a very, from my perspective, is a very noble profession. There's so much suffering in the world, partially because people don't know themselves. They're chasing or pursuing wrong things and going in the blind. And so you're helping people to find their path a lot easier and faster. And thank you so much for doing that.
It's my pleasure. It gives. It's such a joy. Every session I do with someone is such a joy, because of, like you just said, what's available. It's impressive, and it's sort of extraordinary and familiar at the same time. And you put those things together, and it often just helps you see so clearly what's right in front of you, so you can use it and repeat it.
Beautiful. Ahram, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, brother. Look forward to next time.
Yeah.